and welcome to the long-awaited episode 2 of the Motorsport Games Podcast. We've been so busy, Justin. I just haven't had time to even think about the podcast working on Le Mans Esports. But how are you, friend?
I'm doing well. I'm also very busy with NASCAR Heat 5. So yeah, we're both pretty slammed with work stuff here. But I mean, you know, we're doing what we love, so it could be worse.
Mate, what's been going on in the gaming world? So we're recording this on, I think, Friday before the Le Mans 24 virtual. They've just released some F1 2020 split screen footage. I think a lot of F1 fans have been asking for that. Have you managed to check out the footage yet?
Yes, I did check it out. And yeah, I'm a bit surprised that it took as long as it did. But of course, you know, it's difficult. You got to render twice as much stuff essentially. So I can understand the difficulties there. But yeah, it looks good. It was a little weird seeing the chase cam being utilized by one of the two people in the split screen mode. But I mean, I guess, you know, it's going to be used for like kids and families, you know, stuff like that. So I guess it makes sense to show off the chase cam, but that's not something I'd ever actually seen before. I don't think I've ever seen anyone drive an F1 game in chase cam before. Weirdly, it's just strange.
It's like the split screen games to me, you mentioned it perfectly there. Like, it takes me back to why I think I got into like video games, playing Mario Kart with my dad, my brother, my sister, 4 of us on the N64 back in the day. I think that's definitely going to be maybe, because, you know, Liberty Media, they were putting a big onus on getting young fans back into F1 again. And I think that they could have pushed Codemasters in the right direction for that. Because for me, the game's always been, it's an arcade game, but it always leads to the more kind of hardcore fans, the F1 games. So this could be a way to kind of make it a bit more accessible for the younger audience.
Yeah, I think you're right about that.
Justin, like, talking about F1 games, how has My Driver been going? We had a Rava on last time. He gave us a little bit of early info about My Driver coming back. But yeah, you've been working on the series. How's that been?
Yeah, it's been going great. I've been doing, Arab's been doing 2 episodes per week. So he's really been pumping these out. And I mean, it's a lot of effort to go through these as well, too, you know, and this is not some quick 1-hour recording session, throw in an intro and put it up on YouTube. I mean, he's got tables that he's got to generate. As I mentioned previously as well, if the race isn't exciting enough, he'll go record it again. You know, he'll just restart the entire race. So the fact that he's pumping out 2 of these per week is just absolutely incredible. What my favorite F1 driver, Sergio Perez, though, just won his first race of the season, of the 2023 season. I don't know if that's going to be foreshadowing for real F1. Arab has been known to make some predictions using My Driver, so maybe I can expect to see Sergio's first win in 2023. But it wasn't his first win in My Driver. He used to drive over at Audi in My Driver. He was a championship contender, all that kind of stuff. But I mean, it's been absolutely crazy, going all over the place. You know, Leclerc was winning for a little bit there, won a couple of races, first at Ferrari, then over at Mercedes at Monaco. So yeah, it's been pretty crazy, but it's been a lot of fun for me as well, just to get back into it. Because as I mentioned before, you know, working with Arav on My Driver is about as good as it gets. You know, it's like the pinnacle for someone like myself to be able to go in there and just, you know, do some practice stuff and do the grid rundown. I mean, it's just the way that he does the grid as well too, the animations and everything. Top notch.
And like you said, the animations are like professional level, but he's also getting like more views than some world championships are getting on YouTube per video. That must be something cool to be involved with.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I go and I look at things after I record. Like when I did I remember when I did the Monaco hot lap for F1 esports back in like 2017 or something, and it went up on the actual F1 YouTube channel. I was like, oh my God, this is insane. You know, it's getting like 200,000 views. And Arab's over here getting, you know, like 6-digit numbers every single episode for this new season, which is going to be the final season as well too. It's just incredible, the number of views. By the end of this season, it's going to be in the millions, the number of views for all the episodes. And I still can't believe that when you go and you pull up one of those videos, the first voice you hear is mine. And it's the only voice you hear for like the first 3 minutes or something. And there's 100,000 people watching this. I'm just like, this is crazy.
Man, I was working with you, I think 4 months. That is probably like March up until, no, but maybe like 3 months. March up until like May, June. I had no clue you were the mic. Like, I knew your voice. I was on calls with you. I always, I know this guy's voice. I watch the My Driver videos, but I've kind of finally put the face to the name. Speaking of big streamers coming up first on the podcast this week, we have Jimmy Broadbent, a guy who's famous for lapping so quickly around the Nürburgring. We have an awesome chat with him. Coming up after Jimmy Broadbent, we have the reigning FIA world champion, Timmy Hansen. And after that, do you want to introduce the last guest, Justin?
I had the pleasure of sitting down with Elliott Henderson, who I work with on NASCAR Heat 5. He is one of the game developers on NASCAR Heat 5 and NASCAR Heat 4, and some other things as well too. So it was great to sit down and talk to him a little bit about NASCAR Heat 5, the upcoming title, but also just a little bit about NASCAR itself.
We'll be getting to that later on. First off, we can't go into this weekend without talking the awesome lineup for the Le Mans 24 Virtual. Hashtag Le Mans 24 Virtual across all the social media. Justin, who has been the kind of standout driver? If you can pick one out of these 50 top tier teams, who's the standout team for you?
I gotta say, I do really like the Alonso Barrichello team with Ali Pakala as well, who is kind of like an F1 esports veteran as well. He's been around for absolutely forever. He's still involved in F1 esports, but just not as a driver these days. He's kind of moved away from the driving side of things, but just a very well-known sim racer. Rubens Barrichello also just a fantastic guy, absolute legend of Formula One. I don't remember if he's got the record for the most number of races, but I know he's up there. He's easily one of the most recognizable and nicest guys as well too. And then Fernando Alonso is, in my opinion, one of the greatest racing drivers of any discipline of all time. So I got to say the Fernando Alonso Kamoa LMP car, that's going to be one I'm going to be watching for sure. But as you said, this is a star-studded lineup. I mean, the number, I don't think I've ever seen a sim racing lineup of this caliber.
It's so awesome. I've been lucky enough to kind of tune into some of the test races we've had just past weekend, over the past week. It was really interesting to see some teams electing to put the sim races in first for the first stint. Some teams kind of electing to put the sim races for a later stint. For anyone who doesn't know, the Le Mans 24 Virtual, there has to be a minimum of 2 drivers with an FIA World Motorsport license, something along those lines. I'm not technical like that, but essentially that means it has to be 2 real-world drivers who aren't focusing on the esports permanently. You do get some exceptions for that, because you have the likes of Max Verstappen and Lando Norris, who they stream a little bit of sim racing every now and then, but because they are officially have FIA racing licenses, they are allowed to be elected as the 2 drivers. But if we're going through the list here, we've got number 8 car, Sebastian Buemi, Brendan Hartley, 2 ex-F1 drivers alongside Yamashita and Kastorp. These are some of the best combinations of teams I've ever seen. Sorry, I'm sorry for leaning in there. I can barely see the writing on here. We've got Team Pence, we've got Juan Pablo Montoya, who's just today announced that he actually wants to go for the real Triple Crown. Like, he wants to get back this Le Mans 24 virtual experience, wants to get him back in a real car and actually go for that Triple Crown and maybe get it before Fernando Alonso does. You've mentioned the Fernando Alonso team there. We've got Team Redline, Max Verstappen, Lando Norris, Korkov and Hutu. Gregor Hutu is regarded as, like, you're way more into sim racing than myself, Justin. Gregor Hutu is regarded as a god among sim racers. And I think that team there is going to be really, really, really hard to beat. Below him, we've got Jenson Button in the number 23 car. This, I agree. I don't think this is one of the best esports lineups ever. I think this is one of the best motorsport lineups I have ever seen.
Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. And as you said, it's not just for the sim racers. There's some real treats in here as well, too. Cooper Brzezinski, for example, driving for the Rebellion Williams eSport team. He's somebody that I've been commentating on and watching as a driver for a long, long time. Peter Briliak as well. He's another one that I've seen in a lot of places. Isaac Price as well. He's does F1 esports among other things as well. There's just so many fantastic. Gregor Hutu, as you mentioned, absolute legend. One of the first. I already mentioned Ali Pakala as well too. Olivier Fortin, he's a good one. I mean, there's too many to mention. sort of in the same way that there's too many to mention with the real world drivers as well too. But I mean, it's not just the guys that are kind of like household names, and there's plenty of those. I mean, we didn't even touch on Simon Pagenaud from IndyCar, and there's Nelson Piquet Jr. There's a lot of people in this that haven't even been mentioned. But yeah, on the sim racing side, I've just seen Mitchy Hoyer's name as well.
There's a little well-known guy called Charles Leclerc who's taking part. I think he's pretty good.
Yep. I think he's known mostly for his ballet dancing recently. He's mostly known as a ballet dancer, but I've heard he's been known to dabble in some sim racing. Oh, Yuri Kastorp, who you mentioned, by the way, I just commentated on him driving the VEC Le Mans last week. So, I mean, I know he's going to be fresh and ready to go because, he just did a 24-hour race at Circuit Les Arts.
You go down to, I'm just going for the GTE lineup. We got Jordan Taylor, aka Rodney Sandstorm. If you don't know Rodney Sandstorm, Google it. I'm not going to spoil it for you. In the Corvette, number 63 Corvette, 91 Porsche. We've got Andre Lotterer, Neil Janney, both racing for Porsche in Formula E. And they've also got a guy called Mitchell de Jong, who, Justin, I don't know if you've come across Mitchell, but I know him from his Rallycross racing days in the real world, but I've seen his sim racing exploits. Mitchell is one of the best drivers, best sim racers in the world for that, and that's going to be a team to beat.
Yeah, no doubt about it. He is one of the best. He's up there with like Gregor Hutu. He is kind of like an iRacing guy, though, as far as I know. Mitchell de Jong does a lot of iRacing stuff, so he may struggle a little bit by comparison with R Factor because it does have minor differences. But yeah, I mean, he's definitely going to be good. I gotta say, I gotta give a shout out to the Veloce car as well with Jeb, since I'm a former Veloce employee. He's got Pierre Gasly with him as well, Jarno Opmeer and Isaac Gillison, those guys being Veloce sim racing drivers as well. I mean, we could actually just go down the list of all the drivers and like 80% of them I either already know or I've already worked with. I mean, just so many of these guys. But I think just like you said, what's really surprising is that there's so many drivers from the real side and from the virtual side coming together for this incredible event. It's going to be absolutely epic.
I can't wait for it. It all begins, if anyone who's going to catch this on YouTube tonight, it starts Saturday, 13th of June at 3 p.m. Central European Summertime, of course, runs all through the night. Got some midnight entertainment from DJ Avena, who's come on board to provide a live DJ set for everybody watching in partnership with Motorsport Tickets. It is going to be such an awesome race, and I'm so happy to, as Motorsport Games, we get to be part of it. And yeah, it's going to be awesome. But Justin, look, we could talk about Le Mans, we could talk about all the upcoming games forever, but first up, we have a YouTuber who, as I said before, is famous for sending cars super quick around the Nürburgring. He has recently won a iRacing Indy 500. He has been racing in the Nürburgring 24 hours. It's Mr. Jimmy Broadbent. So, Mr. Jimmy Broadbent, aka Shed Sheeran, welcome to the Motorsport Games Podcast. How are you, sir?
I'm good, mate. I'm just coughing up, as I always tend to do on these things, I think. Just waking myself up because I'm glad the Shed Sheeran name is stuck.
It seems it's been probably the most used name I've seen for you in every stream. Every race you're competing in at the minute, the comments are littered with Shed Sheeran fans. And it seems like you built like almost an alternate following to the typical Jimmy Broadbent fan base.
My favourite one so far has been Shaki X. I think that's been the best one. That's been a good one.
I love it, mate. It's been so busy for you. I've seen you competing in the World of XC Sports, virtual GPs, and Nürburgring 24 hours, the iRacing Indy 500, where you had a brilliant result. Where do you find the time for this? So I know it's in lockdown, but even I would struggle to get all of that in.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to get people giving me the business for not practicing too much because that's how it is. You have to bounce between them really quickly, and fortunately, I say fortunately, I guess I'm fortunate. This is my job, so I spend a lot of time on the rig. So instead of taking maybe like 2 hours to customize something, it takes like 20 minutes, and you're already up to speed, and you can start pushing from there. But yeah, I mean, if I find a race I'm interested in doing it, then that'll be my focus for that couple of days, and that tends to get you in the right stead for racing. Usually.
What event have you enjoyed the most over the past? Obviously, you had the awesome win in the Indy 500 iRacing, but what racing is what gets you up in the morning excited for a race day?
endurance stuff all the time. Like, I think my favorite race this season was probably the one with Bruno Spengler and Niels Koch from with BMW, because Bruno Spengler, you'd think, oh no, he's gonna be this really scary, racing driver. He was so nice. He was so nice. So was Niels as well, and being part of that team and seeing how seriously like they were taking it, the manufacturer was taking it, that was really cool to be a part of, because like there was testing, there was like setup stuff, and it was like being part of a little mini race team. It was really nice.
I guess that kind of leads on to your next big venture, R Factor 2 Le Mans 24-hour virtual, which Motorsport Games are co-producing. So I'm very heavily involved in that. Boys, delighted to see your name pop up on the entry list. How is preparation for that going, and how much preparation are you going to be putting into this race?
It's been going pretty well. All our team have first of all focused on getting because there's a minimum requirement you have to do to actually be in the race, which is 10 times laps, or 10 clean laps, I should say, which we've all done at this point. We've been doing some early setup work as well. For me, it's a bit different because I don't usually drive GTE cars. I always drive cars with downforce because I'm one of those fake skill people. I can't go fast without wings. But I've got some really cool teammates. One of them being old Ferdinand Hasberg, and he's been really good so far with setup and talking to the engineer. And again, it's just nice hearing how the drivers do it. The real drivers do it to how you do it. You go, I've broke it. And it's just like, I'm getting some slight mid-corner oversteer on the apex of his corner. I'm like, oh, well, yeah, me too. It's they just have a different way of approaching things. It's kind of nice to watch it and observe it.
I've recently seen Lando talking to his kind of sim racing engineer, and my head was kind of blown. Like, I know we all sit there messing with setups on our games all the time, but yes, I'm very much of you seeing that professional side of things and how a real race driver adapts to the sim racing world. That must be cool for you as a kind of motorsport and a sim racing fan.
Definitely. I've always got to pinch myself when I find myself in these races alongside these big drivers, these big names, because I wonder, what the hell they got me for? Like, couldn't they get the other guy? They got me instead, But it's really cool to learn, and two, it's kind of nice to, and this is what I said to a lot of friends of mine over the course of these last few months, I suppose. It's nice to humanize these people, because you see them as drivers usually as like a set of numbers, and like, oh, his set of numbers is worse than that guy's set of numbers. He must be bad. And you talk to him, and like you think, I'm so sorry I ever felt anything bad about like how you were driving or whatever. It's just a guy who's trying his best, who's passionate about it, like you are 95% of the time. So it's always amazing to be a part of it, and every day I think I'm very lucky to be here. So
I think it's you're kind of in that crossover world as well. You've got these racing stars, you've got the sponsor back, and they travel the world doing it, but they're always behind a helmet. And there's yourself who does everything in the virtual world, but you're front and center of your own content. And yeah, I love the way that this virtual world and the real racing world have combined so much over the past few weeks. You've been racing against the likes of Verstappen and Lando Norris in the virtual GP and various other iRacing competitions. That must be the norm for you now. But with the Le Mans 24, you stop there.
Yeah, I said it turns out that's fast. I don't know who could have predicted that. But yeah, it's odd because you see them on the grid. And I remember I did a video. And start of 2019 now, right at the start of 2019, where I kind of got invited into a server with Verstappen and Lando and a couple of other guys as well, and it was very weird because at that time I was in full fanboy mode. Oh my god, it's Max Verstappen, and now I see him on the grid. I'm like, oh, Max is going to win this, and then like, and that's basically the end of. I'm not going to see him the entire race. I hope he has a good race. And that's about it.
It's almost like in the space of 18 months, it's gone from exciting and different to see Verstappen and Lando in a lobby to now almost like you're disappointed if they're not in a virtual GP or not along those lines. It's really flipped on its head.
How cool is that though? How cool is that we now have all these drivers actually taking this stuff like kind of seriously for the most part? And I know that a lot of those guys are always going to prioritize real life driving. I think I would too if I had the opportunity. But I think that it's good to see him come in and have two kind of really well-known figures like Max and Lando come in, take it seriously, and be good at it. I think it gives it some credibility.
Like Le Mans 24, you're heading into. You got the likes of Juan Pablo Montoya, Ruben.
Yeah, I know.
F1 2009 F1 champion Jenson Button, who saw as Brits. We're excited to see him back racing again, and lining up against that. Like I'm a racing fan who's never going to get to your level of sim racing, and I enjoy playing around on my controller. I don't have a sim setup, but for you as someone who's taken this so seriously, it's been such a big part of your life for the past years to be lining up among those guys in such a big, huge race, huge, going to be on television all over the world as well. I don't know if you know that, and
Yeah.
it must be cool.
I mean, of course, I've kind of gone through this a couple of times this lockdown. The first time I realised that the virtual GP was going to be like on Sky and stuff like that, and be broadcast and on TV. And I remember I knew it was serious because someone showed me some odds from from a bookie, and I was like, "What? Why are there odds on me?" But for me, Le Mans is the big one. 100%, it's the big one because I've always been an endurance fan. We won it last year in iRacing, and that's probably one of my best sim racing moments to get to share that with people. And to go back this year, I mean, the only downside is I'm in a GT. I would love to be in a prototype. But at the same time, I'm really glad I'm with the guys I'm with because they're really cool and really fun to drive with. But the thing for me, the thing that kind of hammered it home is, like you get the entry lists, the really official looking one with what the colours on it, of the team.
Yeah.
I look down and I'm like, oh, what name's on that? Oh, no. And that was a big one.
It's the little things that really make you smile. Well, it's the little things. Look, we've just spoken about kind of real world stars being I don't want to say forced to, but happen to take the virtual world a bit more seriously. We've recently seen unfortunate incidents for drivers such as Daniel Abt, and for a very different reason, Kyle Larson in NASCAR. What's your take on this, on the virtual world affecting real world drivers? Because I know we take it seriously, but I think we're both motorsport fans as well, so it'd be interesting to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I've had a lot of people ask me about it, understandably, I suppose. But I think that in these events, you have to see it as this way. These drivers, they're employed by a team, they're being backed by sponsors. And in those events, they are representing that team and sponsors. So if you go and do something incredibly stupid, like think that you can have someone drive for you and no one will notice, or you say you project to the world that you're going to take out Lando because you're upset that you got wrecked by somebody else, then there's always going to be a bit of kickback. Motorsport fans, by definition, they have a favorite driver. Yeah. When I had the crash with Lando at the virtual GP, and again, that was 100% not my fault. I was as far over as I could go, and he was trying to squeeze me, and we laughed about it at the time. It was fun. No one really cared about it. I got people DMing me on Twitter and saying, how dare you do this to Lando, stuff like that, because people are super into it still. But to kind of go back to your original point, I think that it shows that there's definitely big egos in racing in real life, and I think you need to be that way, kind of, but also at the same time, if it's going to put your career in jeopardy, maybe it's something you got to think about before broadcasting yourself to the world. There's no filter without a helmet.
Exactly. How do you find it? You must go through. I understand streaming for you is a bit. It's more fun for you in terms of you don't have a sponsor backing, but you are let's say a public figure. You've got a huge fan base there, and you must find that. How do you find that responsibility of kind of keeping the fans happy with your witty banter and obviously being your angry reactions, but also not crossing that line into ever? It must be a hard line to balance.
Yeah, I think so. And I think, like recent world events have kind of shown that this is a bit lacking in some places, that we need to just be treating people the way you want to be treated yourself. It sounds very basic, and I don't think it really covers a lot of the stuff that's going on, but I always want to make someone in chat feel like they're a friend. They're here to chat. They're here to enjoy the stream. They're here to be part of it. If we're doing an endurance race, I want them to feel like they're part of the team. They're along for the ride after all. They're essentially sitting in the back seat of our Audi R18. I'm not quite sure we should put that back there, to be honest. But I think it's important to have that. And sometimes I do find myself getting irate if something goes wrong. But the important thing is allow yourself to have the moment of like anger or frustration, but then address it logically, move past it, and then continue with the race. I mean, a great example for that would be the N24, where I, in all my driving skill, crashed the car out of the race pretty much on lap 3 of a 24-hour race, and I was just distraught. I was so embarrassed with myself. I thought, what an idiot! What did I do that? So I went away, got myself a cup of tea, sat in the garden while the car was being repaired, came back. Okay, let's continue, and that's kind of what you got to do.
So we talked about real world drivers there. Is there a current driver, F1, World Endurance Championship, rallying that you would like to see step into the virtual world that hasn't made that step yet?
Oh man, that's a good question. To be honest, a lot of the drivers that I've always wanted to see drive or drive against have already done it. It's kind of mad to think that, actually. I think I'd like to see more of Lewis. I'm not particularly a fan of any driver, but Lewis, of course, he's a big boy. You know, he's F1 champ. You know, he's kind of known around the world. I've had a couple of chances to kind of semi-meet him through Gran Turismo events, but that's really about it. I would love to see him hop on the sim, but then at the same time, I know how they're wired. I think if he wanted to hop on the sim, he wanted to hop on. He wanted to be the fastest. He won't want to jump on and come second to some twat that lives in the shed, you know. So, which I don't think he would, for the record. But like, that's just an example.
But how do you find it going up against these? You get some of the esports professionals, especially in the virtual GP, to the point where they've had to split up the kind of pro racers and the virtual. And what kind of dedication do you think it takes to get to that level? Because you're obviously working so hand in hand with GT Sport and seeing those guys at the top of their game. Is that a level of driving you could ever commit to, or do you see that as something a different craft of sim racing?
I think it's a bit different, you know. I mean, ultimately, I do the driving just because I like it. You know, I'm a big motorsport fan. I love cars. I love the sound they make, the feeling you get when you drive them in real life. It's, you know, the very visceral, basic things. But I remember I was speaking to Daniele Haddad, who is the Racing Point esports driver, and he was saying some days before a race he's doing 8-9 hours of practice over the course of the day, you know, to really get, and that's like for another 10th. Yeah. You have to basically imagine, what if F1 teams had unlimited testing again? What do they go and do? They go and test.
Yeah.
And it's basically the same thing there. In sim racing, you haven't got to fly all your stuff over to Spain or whatever. You can just be there in a click of the fingers, and you're there driving for the next few hours with unlimited fuel, unlimited tires, everything. So for me, that's not fun. It's cool for a bit to try and beat a lap time, but I can imagine after like 3 or 4 hours of being stuck on the same time, I think things would start flying around.
I struggle to get through a 50% race on the F1 game, so yeah, I've so much respect for them. Where does your love of motorsport and car culture come from then? We know you've got your awesome Skyline. You've got a new addition. I won't spoil that. Go onto Jimmy's YouTube channel if you want to see his new addition to his lineup. But where does your love of motorsport and car culture come from?
Oh man, I say a couple of places. You know, I mean, first of all, my dad, he introduced racing to me when I was very young. In fact, my first memory of Formula One is the Goodyear logo on, I think, a Williams going round on the tire, and I was like, oh wow, I'm like a basic child, like, wow, look at that go round, it's amazing. And then just loved it from there. My granddad as well introduced me to a lot of stuff, and he introduced me to Gran Turismo, the first one, and I played the absolute hell out of that. Like, I sat down, and I used to have a rule with my parents, like, only play video games for an hour a day, which didn't really work out too well for them, as you can see. And I had a little timer in my TV, which is part of the TV, and I'd always turn it off about 45 minutes and turn it back on again, just to reset it to 0. So whenever they came in, they wouldn't know. But in that game, there are just so many old JDM cars, you know, and for that, I just thought, these are amazing. Like, you know, how can you have this? Because in the UK, in the kind of the late 90s, early 2000s, like, what was there that was interesting that I can think of on the street? There wasn't really anything, you know, and GT was showing us all this stuff. Like, look at this. This was around 5 years ago. How amazing was this, like, twin turbo straight six car? And, yeah, I just fell in love from there. And unfortunately for my wallet, it's not really subsided yet. So.
And tell us a bit more how you got into the streaming side of things. When was that first kind of moment where you decided, I want to kind of dedicate myself to this? And you saw probably I don't want to say you saw a career out of it, because I don't think many do when they're starting a YouTube channel, but where you saw this was something you wanted to commit so much time to.
Well, I mean, I've been streaming kind of on and off since about 2013, 2014. That started on Twitch. I started doing it kind of seriously towards the end or middle of 2016. And at the time, I was unemployed. I was off with disability. I had some pretty bad mental issues that I was working through at the time. Luckily now, kind of mostly better, so that's good. But for me, it was just like I needed to do something with my day. Because when you're in those scenarios, I won't go into it in too much detail, but you can just leave yourself staring at the ceiling all day and you'll do it. So I thought, well, let's do something productive. Let's just make a video every day and stream every now and then and see what happens. And I started to realize people were coming back. I assumed it was some sort of Stockholm syndrome, but they kept coming back, and then the audience kept going up, and I got to 10,000 subscribers, and I thought, you know what, let's make a go of this. Yeah. Let's do it, and I started contacting people. I contacted Kissingveld, the guys who provided my pedals and stuff, and just said, can I have some stuff? Yeah. Just completely expect them to give me a slap and tell me no. And they came back and gave me an entire rig and pedal set and said, yeah, go for it, see what happens. And then kind of just went from there, really.
Well, all it takes is that little kind of moment of someone to believe in you, and I think that's kind of snowballed into where your channel's at now. I've been a fan of your channels probably since the kind of you're putting all the effort into the Nürburgring lap attempts, and we were talking about practice there. How well do you know the Nürburgring?
I mean, usually the hot lap you see is my first flying lap. So I do an out lap and do a flying lap, and that's it. And then like one and done sort of thing. Some cars require a couple more laps just to get used to how killy they are. But to be honest, with those laps, like, they aren't. The reason I do it that way is to keep it a bit of fun. Yeah. Because if you do what I said earlier and sit down and just session it for a few hours, you could probably go about maybe 5 seconds faster around there. But that ain't fun. And yeah, you want to be enthusiastic while you're doing the commentary too. So I tend to just do it, and yeah, I know the place pretty well now.
We've seen you over the past year or two stepping into rally cars for the Dirt 2 release, into the McLaren GT car. What is your ultimate dream real world car to drive?
Wait, in a racing perspective, or
let's go for both then, because I know you're a car culture fan as well. Let's go for both.
Okay, yeah. So if I were to, I guess this could be both. I would love to have the opportunity to drive a old GT40. That's like my dream car, GT40. I have no idea why. I think it's because I saw an old Jeremy Clarkson tape when I was really young. I thought that car looks amazing. It had a little bubble on the roof because it was too tall to get into a normal one. So that, and I would love to drive that. And I think for like an actual proper like modern racing car, like an LMP2, I think I would love to drive an LMP1 car. But like if I somehow became some sort of gentleman driver and I struck gold outside the shed or something, and somehow loads of money, I would probably try and get into that and do, because that's the sort of racing I'm passionate about. It's multi-class, bit of downforce, because driving those cars, you always have something to do. If it maximizing your lap time or working your way past slower traffic, there's never any quiet in your head when you're driving those cars, and that's the sort of stuff I love. It's really intense.
Last question, Jimmy. There's going to be loads of people who watch you, aspiring sim racers who are aspiring to get to your level of kind of popularity or notoriety on YouTube. What would be kind of one or two bits of advice you'd give to anyone in terms of, you mentioned there you weren't scared to reach out to potential sponsors and partners. Do you see that as a big point? What would be two bits of advice you'd give?
Yeah, I guess the will to want to make it is odd, because some people want to be a YouTuber and they don't want to, like, they want to just be that guy that, I do the sponsored videos, I get to go to these places. It's got to be more than that. You got to love what you're doing. You've got to enjoy it, because YouTube is fickle. First of all, one day you're really popular, next day the algorithm forgets who you are, which is always nice. But like for me, the thing that pushes me through is I just love driving. I love speaking to people about it. So every time I make a video, it's an opportunity to open up another conversation with someone about, what do you think about this? That's cool, wasn't it? And that was great. And I say, don't be afraid to speak to people. Don't be afraid to know your worth. Once you start getting to having a few thousand subscribers, people will start reaching out to you, wanting things from you. And don't be afraid to say yes to things, but also don't be afraid to understand that your time is valuable, because some people don't think that. Some people will just take it because you're the next face on the scene. But I'm sure people know better than that. But those are the things that I've kind of learned, is just keep yourself happy with it, and keep enjoying it, and keep doing things you want to do. Don't let people dictate what you do, and don't be afraid to give yourself value.
Jimmy, thank you very much for joining us, mate. Thank you for sparing the time so early in the morning, and we'll catch you again soon.
No worries, mate.
Cheers. Well, thank you, Mr. Jimmy Broadbent, very much for joining me. We've got no time. We've got such an action-packed episode. Our next guest is the 2019 FIA World Champion, Timmy Hansen. So welcome to the podcast, a very, very good friend of mine, Mr. Timmy Hansen, 2019 FIA World Rallycross Champion. Are you ever going to get bored of being called that?
No, but it still feels new, It's like now I'm the reigning world champion when it's come to another year. So it feels amazing to hear it. But still, that feeling of doing it, I want to do that again. So I'm hard at work, even though it's downtime and everything now. Working hard, trying to keep my eyes on the prize still, and training hard and doing whatever I can as an athlete.
So what have you been doing in terms of kind of preparations for the season? You've got the season opener coming up at the Magic Weekend, your home race, a race I love traveling to. And what kind of preparations are the Hansen family putting into the Peugeot 208?
So we had everything planned to start when we should have started, but then of course everything happened and everything got delayed. So that meant kind of we put it on pause for a little bit. And it's also, as a company, we have to continue to survive. We're not racing right now, so we're not making any money right now. But we can do the things we're doing, but a little bit slower. So we in the family are working on little details on the car, but cars are ready to race, and we're just tidying stuff up, making sure we look good when we get going, preparing for, I guess, the new challenges of wearing the face masks and staying socially distant when we are on a race. So that's going to be kind of a new way of working. And but I mean, I hope we get going in the end of August in Sweden, in Höljes. And then I think once we're back on the racetrack, it will feel like we were never gone.
So look, I'm going to take you back to last year, start of last year in Abu Dhabi. Actually, I realised one thing. Start of the year, you and Baku clash. End of the year, you and Baku clash again. You're both very good. You're both such good friends of mine, and it's like to see you two kind of at the top of the sport you two love so much, the sport you've both grown up in. You've raced against Baku for many years. So how, despite having that rivalry, what is it like racing against someone A, you know so well, but B, he knows you so well as well? Yeah,
so we have had so many fights on the track through the years, and I think we both want that to succeed more than anything else. So right now he's a tough rival. He was like my main rival last year, and that kind of, then there are some friction. But in the end, after we've calmed down, he's going to be a good friend of mine still. We've known each other for such a long time, but now we're in the middle of it and in this tension, and we both want to beat each other. But now comes a new year. But last year was definitely tough. He put in a fantastic season, and so hard to beat many times. I had to get everything right to win a couple races, and in the end, we were on the same points, but I had more race victories during the season, so it couldn't have been closer. And who deserves to be champion could be either of us, could be Kevin too, because he was just a couple points back. But I was the lucky one. I got the title, and all three of us deserves it equally much, because I see every day what Kevin is going through. He's just in the other room here, and I know Andreas so well that I know he's going through the same stuff. So when you put your heart into something and you work so hard, then I think that's why we had such an amazing season, because it was by heart. It wasn't by numbers or budget. It was by passion that we all went into the season. And between that first crash and the last crash that we had, me and Andreas, then a lot of things happened during the season. I had a strong beginning. He was very strong in the end, and then it came down to the very last race of the season, the last final, those 6 laps, and I came out on top, and I'm grateful for that. I'm happy for that. I'm grateful for everyone that helped me to get through this, to make it. And feels amazing now, like we do this interview and you present me as the world champion. I'm never going to get tired of that.
It's like your family's not a family that's kind of new to winning. Your father's I think a 15 or 14-time European Rallycross champion.
14.
Your brother is the youngest ever European supercar champion, and now yourself the world champion. I think it's your kid, your little boy Sam is going to be. How is it? Have you got him? How old is Sam now? Just out of interest.
He's 2 years old now, so he's starting to talk and becoming a person now. He loves tractors because we live kind of outside the city, and there are some tractors going around. That's his biggest fascination.
You need to get him on Farming Simulator. He'll love that game.
Yeah. I think that's cheaper for me.
To see, I've looked, Timmy, I've known you since 2014 personally, but kind of looking back on your career, I was just earlier on watching a 2012 in Kuvula, your first ever, what I think was your first ever race in a supercar. Yeah. And again, in that one race, we saw your because I watched the video, which is quite famous on YouTube. You went from not really understanding how to get. I think the first heat, you had a bit of contact going into turn one, and I think you came off that going, I'm a Formula driver, I'm not used to this. And then you fast forward to a race like I'm sure you remember this, Belgium 2018, the semi-final, when I remember you got pushed out in the first corner. You then battled back. You had a trouble in the Joker section and took 2 positions in the next 4 corners. That type of progression from going from a Formula racer who doesn't know how to put a car sideways, let alone win a Rallycross race, how have you found that transition from kind of the traditional circuit racing to the more traditional racing for your family?
It has been a massive journey. So when I went from single-seater racing into Rallycross, it's a huge step, both in your career, but also in my life, because I was kind of doing the single-seater stuff was my thing, and mom and dad were there sometimes, but that was me kind of alone, like any other single-seater driver with the team and doing my best. And then coming into the Rallycross team is first of all, like, I came back to my family where I felt safe, and I started to have more fun again. Started to have a smile on my face when I got out the race car, which was, I think, something I forgot the last couple seasons in single seaters. That I'm just there to have fun finally. If it's not fun, then why am I here? So that's something that I found in Rallycross, and I still feel it when I'm in the car, when I'm on a race day. I love this sport. And then actually on track, what you mentioned in Finland, that first race of mine, I thought the other driver drove into me like crazy, like he was a madman. but then looking at the outside footage, because I'd seen much Rallycross, but then it was like, oh, that was nothing. But I was still really pissed at him before, but I wasn't used to any contact. and then that was a real wake-up call for me, and took me seasons. I was fast on tarmac, but couldn't handle any contact, couldn't drive fast on gravel. And that gravel driving and being that contact is really what the Rallycross driver is about. So much of the race goes into those battles, and less, it's more about battling and starting well than being the ultimately fastest driver to win a race. So, but as an athlete or as a driver, I love that search for more, search to become better, search to become faster, search to work better in the team and bring everybody together. And that's what I've been doing all these years. When today, just before our call, I just stepped off the training bike. That's one part of the big job. And then being together with the team and finding those good relationships and how to get the most out of everyone in the team. All of those details played into finally last year, I got the big trophy. But it's a journey I'm very proud of, what you mentioned between my first race and that 2018 race in Belgium, where everything I had put everything into there, and it was a fantastic race. I made it through. That was in the semifinal, so I was dead last and made it through anyway. So it's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, I guess, that's gone into learning all that. But so proud of it, and now the prize right here. That's the World Championship prize. I thought it was worth bringing onto here. I'm proud of that. So now I have it. I don't know what to do with it more than show it, but yeah, it's there.
You have to give that back. Is that a trophy you keep, or is that one of the trophies you have to give back? I don't know. Don't have it.
No, yet. I don't know. I so badly want to keep it, but I'm afraid they're gonna take it back. Maybe I'm gonna hide it after now and say I don't have it.
Just lose it. No, yeah. I don't know how many people see this podcast. We'll just hide it from the right people.
Yeah, exactly. Can you blur this and then I tell the FIA I don't have it?
I'm talking about it. We've recently seen, we're the Motorsport Games Podcast, so I could talk to you about Rallycross all day, but We are the Motorsport Games Podcast. We've recently seen you making out into the World of X esports events, which you've been. Yeah. I've been very, very impressed with your pace. I know you guys have been practicing a lot with the kind of the Lomo brothers and various drivers from around the world. How have you found the World Rallycross esports?
Well, first of all, I hadn't done any esports before. I didn't play many games and stuff. So when this lockdown came, and then it's like, okay, there will be no racing. And then I saw on my Instagram and my social feeds that, okay, esports is coming along. And then Kevin was really early he got the good simulator and then started to do it. And then I was like, I knew this World RX Invitational would happen. And I started to drive, and I was super slow, didn't understand anything. I couldn't go around the track without crashing. So started practicing more and found that really with every hour I drive, the faster I get. So rewarding for putting in the effort in driving in the game and becoming faster. So I really have done it like everything else that I'm doing. So practicing hard and kind of realizing I'm practicing to be fast in this game, Dirt Rally 2.0, and not trying to mimic too much what I'm doing in reality, but adapting to that game and those game physics. And I don't think I've been the fastest driver, but I've had good results anyway. So I'm super proud of Barcelona, my first race. I came to the final, and there was way more than I could expect. My kind of goal was not crash and maybe get to the semifinal. And then I made it all the way through. I won my semifinal even. And then the last race now I came second behind Van Gisbergen. He was flying, by the way, but came second. And this is way more than I could have expected from my esports career.
Yeah.
But I've enjoyed it a lot. And that sensation you get when you are just about to start. Like when you're practicing alone, you're completely calm, no heart rate. But when you know it's go time, then that's the same.
I've seen you. You're on board, Timmy, when you're preparing for a race. Are you the same pent up kind of energy before you go into a sim race, or is it?
I am. Yeah. I'm doing all the same stuff, so I have to kind of hit my arms, hit my legs, and get the blood flowing. I don't know. I just need to do it before the esports races.
If you go
just to get in my zone.
If you go to the FI World Rallycross YouTube page, search a very infamous incident between Timmy and Matthias Ekstrom back in, I think it was 2014 or 2015. Yeah, very early in the World RX days. And you'll see it's a very good video of what Timmy gets up to in the car before. It's something which has always interested me, and kind of seen even your brother does it now, working with you guys in Titans last year. How was that for you last year, doubling up on two full-time championships almost?
Yeah, it was actually fantastic. It's very exhausting traveling all around the world, and the World Championship, it was kind of every other weekend, and every other weekend in between there we had Titans races. So for some period of the year I was literally going from racetrack to racetrack and driving what is an amazing car every time. So it was a big learning curve for me. I drove more races than I've ever done before, and I think I learned a lot. I came out definitely a better driver because I drove so much. And what actually happened now, okay, all the races are canceled, but now again, I've driven more in the sim than I could ever do in real life. So I can't say if I've gained or not, but we'll see when I get back. I think I'm going to be sharp immediately, even though we had this break. I think I'm going to be able to get in the car and drive fast, thanks to, staying alert, just continuing to drive.
We're talking about video games, so I'm going to refer to a track I think you and Kevin called a video game-like track, where you've both taken the wins in the past 2 years. Travis Pastrana's awesome Nitro RX mega track. What you both described it as a video game. Just how would you describe a lap around Travis Pastrana's awesome Nitro track?
Yeah, but the reason why we say it's a video game is because it doesn't feel realistic when you go around there. That can't be, what's happening. You don't know what's up or down because you're just jumping and going from bank turns into another bank turns. And it's the best track in the world, all categories, in my opinion. It's definitely, the feeling of going through there is insane. And I've done many good racetracks in Europe as well in my single-seater days, Spa-Francorchamps, Nürburgring, and and many legendary circuits. But that Nitro Rallycross track is just on another planet, just on another level of doing cars. You shouldn't be able to do that with a race car, but we are, and it's unbelievable.
Of course, you've also been racing against Travis in the recent Red Bull homestretch events. It looks like that's played on Gran Turismo Sport, if I'm correct.
Yes. And
how has that been for you? It seems like a much more fun get-together of fellow racing drivers just having fun on track.
Yeah, because we have this, I'm using this computer that we have now, and I have it set on the left of me. Actually, I'll just turn this computer. So here is my home stretch rig. And I have this computer that I'm using right now to talk to everyone else in the same time. So I can hear all the other drivers, and they can hear me, and I've been really fast there, but I can't. It's hard to win because there's this slow car boost. So if you're in the back, then you're faster.
Okay.
And it's not ultimately, this typical esports race where it's just down to precision, and they want us to have fun with it. And in the end, it doesn't help if you're leading because the guys are catching you anyway. So, this happens so much in that series. I've laughed a lot. I've been really mad sometimes. I get pushed off. I push the other one back off, but it's gone well. I've won a couple races. So that has also been great fun, and something I got out of motorsport that I never thought I would. But I've definitely really enjoyed it. Now, last week and this week, it's canceled due to everything that's going on in America. So we see. I hope we get going with it again. But of course, first things first, So they show their respect to all the people fighting and protesting over in America, and we are too. So, yeah. That's
awesome to hear, man. Going back to this kind of the setup of the homestretch event. As a motorsport fan, you're a driver, but I know you're a fan of wider motorsport as well.
Absolutely.
How cool is it to be racing against kind of drivers you watch in other series all coming together? I think that's the power of esports racing. Recently, we've got the Le Mans 24 virtual coming up, where we've got drivers from F1, we've got drivers from WEC, we've got drivers from all over. And how is it for you in the esports capacity to be able to race against the likes of Alexander Rossi, Travis, back with your old teammate Sebastian Loeb as well? How cool is that?
It is really great. It's the same atmosphere as you have in the paddock, because you get along with the drivers you're racing with, and you have a chat, and you're having fun together. Finally, we all love the same thing. So now I've been able to meet and talk to other drivers from other disciplines that I wouldn't have met otherwise. So that home stretch race, they've really brought together motorsport as like how wide it is, and brought us into this just fun game, like a night gaming between friends, and also brought in some famous Americans, football players or maybe baseball players. I don't know, but we've had fun, and I've met people I never thought I would meet otherwise. So yeah, I mean, esports has opened up a whole new world, and I think it shows a lot the world of motorsports in general. Like everybody, we're so passionate, and we're working so hard to get onto the racetrack, and we achieve teams all over the world in different series. It's a fantastic achievement by every single driver on the grid to be there. It's a lot of work and a lot of heart goes into that. And now we couldn't race, but the motorsport community has come up with really creative ideas how to continue to race, because this is what we love more than anything.
I'm going to take you back to the Dirt Series. How, as a driver, and we're still young men, I like to think. Like you've got.
I hope so. Yeah, let's say that.
How cool is it to see your own car in a video game and know that others all around the world are getting to drive your car? That must still be one of the coolest things ever.
Yeah, that's such a childhood dream. So like I'm still young enough to have played video games since I was really little, and car games and Colin McRae, Rally, and many games. And there's always been, you find that driver and you know about the driver, but that was always a dream. I remember Dad was in one game in the 2000s, and I thought that was Rally Sport Challenge. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm sure there was a Hansen car in Dirt 3. It's going back
What's that? Yeah, maybe that was Dad.
Yeah.
Maybe that was Dad, or was it Liam Duran?
I might have
in one
been
of the
Liam's
cars.
Hansen run Citroen. Yes, that is exactly.
I don't remember, but I think you are right. But it's so cool. And now when I go into the game and I choose my car, the 208 is the fastest of the 2019 Rallycross cars in dirt 2.0, and I have the first livery, and lining up on that grid and seeing that's my car, that's me. It feels natural to me. But when I look on YouTube, I've done to kind of see how are the fast gamers driving this track to be fast. Then wow, they're using my car. That's insane, you know.
How does the virtual car stack up to the real car? What, because you've mentioned the dirt physics earlier on. I think everyone it's the dream opportunity to ask a world champion, how does his car in game work to his real world car?
Well, I'm not too obsessed with this reality comparison, because at the end of the day we are sitting still in a room and watching a screen. So no matter how good the physics in a game would be, it wouldn't be real. And I'm not trying to imagine it's real. I'm just trying to be fast in the game. But what I have found is that when I've gone to new circuits in dirt, and kind of we went to Silverstone, and I was with my brother and a couple other guys just playing to have fun, and I was like, whoa, I haven't driven Silverstone. And then, you know, when you're doing an online race, you go straight into Q1. And then I used my real life references, because the track looks exactly as in real. And there's this patch of tarmac where I always brake, and then you have to apex by where the tire stack does this and stuff like that. And it worked. So
that's cool.
When I use my real life references, they work in the game. But then really after knowing the track, I'm just more focused on getting those good lap times in the game. So I found that you have to slide more in the game than you would in reality. And also you miss that feeling from your back, from that the seat is giving you that information of what are the tires doing. You have it through the hands, but not through the back. And that's something, I don't know. Right now we can't do it. Maybe one day, but I think that's been key to learning to be fast in the game, not trying to get it too close or focusing too much on how would I drive in real, because I just focus on how would I drive right here, right now in this game to be as fast as possible.
You just mentioned Silverstone there. Look, I think you have almost definitely driven every single world rallycross track so far. What would be your ultimate favorite track that you've driven in since 2014?
Well, that's definitely Nitro that we spoke about. But apart from that, there are many good tracks. Like Sweden always offers crazy battles that you wouldn't expect. And, you know, I love when you can have a good fight on track, where you're clean and you're kind of playing chess with your opponents. That's fantastic. And then every track then, a bit like the game and reality comparison, not trying to get in too close into what track I prefer. I'm just trying to go fast there, wherever I are. So, yeah, I mean, but those battles, those are my good memories. Yeah. Loads of them from Sweden, which I guess is the reason why so many people call Sweden their favorite track.
Yeah, I remember an amazing battle you had at Turkey, I think back in 2015. And
yeah, that's another fantastic circuit. Yeah,
so good.
Where we just switched sides and we were all over the track. Yeah. Also, you tend to like the fights where you came out first more than the ones you lost. But sometimes it's also about, you know, accepting that, wow, that was a good move, you know. So, and I'm giving that to your opponent, because if you can't lose a battle, then you can't also win in a good way. So you have to be able to lose it and just say well done to whoever overtook you, you know, because that's also kind of a nice feeling, like, wow, he pulled that off. And I don't know how, but like mine and Timur's battle in Belgium last year, when we were side by side for a whole lap until he eventually went to the Joker, and he got out in front of me in the end, and I did my best, he did his best, and then finally he got out on top. So that was a fantastic battle and another good track.
I think you're an ex teammate of Timo back from 2014. Now, how cool was it to see Timo finally take a win last year? How good was that?
That was fantastic. that was my favorite moment of the season. Apart from my own stuff, like to see Timur win, I was so genuinely happy for him that he got that, and because he's been searching for it and come so close so many times, but that win has just not come his way until Belgium. And yeah, I was so happy for him. I know him personally. I root for him on the track. I would call him a friend. And then to see him get that success that he's fought for so long, and to see how happy he was, that definitely made my day. I didn't have the best race day, but to see Timur win, I was like still happy when we took the tent down and loaded everything to get going.
To anyone listening, Timmy has got the biggest smile on his face, as do I when we talk about that moment. Last question we've got from someone, actually no, 2 more questions. We've got some from Jan Sargent on Twitter. He has asked, outside Rallycross, would you like to do some rallying or potentially go back to circuit racing?
I think I love any racing and any kind of motorsport. I love it, but I feel I've done circuit racing. I feel like, okay, I've been there, I've experienced it, but rally I haven't tried yet. Yeah. And that's such a big, like, well, I wonder how that is. And especially that feeling in rallying where you have a stage and you're alone with your co-driver and the road, and it just they just find this flow. I love watching rally onboards. You know, I watch these uncut onboards from start to finish, and that's my Saturday evening entertainment. You know, but it just looks like such an incredible feeling. But they're also incredibly skilled drivers to be able to do that. And I'm not sure I would be able to, you know, this relationship with the co-driver, that would be tough. But that's definitely something I want to do. I haven't found a good way into getting into rallying but I definitely want to.
And the last question from me is, I've heard you talk amazing, like how much you love the Peugeot's Dakar project in the past. What would be your ultimate dream car to step into? It doesn't have to be a Red Bull car. It doesn't have to be a Peugeot car. Anything that you could, doesn't even have to be a race, get on track or anywhere in any car in the world. What would be your dream combo?
Then I think I would have to go with racing then, because going onto tarmac and there it becomes such, they're so far into the detail on the racetrack on tarmac that feeling of having such a car so close to perfect, that it seems incredible. And there's loads of different tarmac racing, like the V8 supercars, that looks like a lot of fun. But just as a pure car, I think I must say a Formula One car. You know, I spent so many years of my life, my early career, chasing that dream, and I never got there. I'm extremely happy. I'm grateful for where I am today, but still that's something I haven't done. And looking at those cars, the speeds that they're getting, how smooth they look on the wheel, and you know, that would be my dream car. I think maybe that's a boring answer, but still, somehow that's an ultimate car, you know.
I think you need to reach out to your Red Bull contacts. I've seen loads of cool car swaps with Ricardo and the V8 supercars dudes. I think you need to get on the phone for that, mate.
If only I knew someone at Red Bull. Yeah.
We'd like to see Max. I think it'd be pretty cool to see Verstappen in a rallycross car as well. That would be something. I think we both like to see that.
Yeah. No, maybe one day it will happen, but I think it would help if I gained a few more world titles. That would kind of help towards getting into a Formula One car. It's not impossible, but still, a world rallycross car is also an insane piece of machine. But that's my everyday car, but that's what I'm used to. That's mine. And I'm looking forward to coming back into my rallycross car, because I haven't had this long break since I started racing ever. So I know that first time you step into the car after the winter break, and you're like, whoa, then it's like, whoa, this is fast. And it takes you kind of some time before you're on full throttle, because there's really no need. There's so much power. So now we've had a longer break, and I look forward to that sensation of doing that first lap, like to feel again how powerful the rallycross car is.
Man, Timmy, thank you so much. I've kept you 5 minutes over our allocated time. I really, really appreciate you joining us. Let's stay safe with you, the family, and good luck for the upcoming season.
It was great to catch up. Thanks for this chat. All the best to everyone out there. Continue to stay safe, and let's get racing soon.
that was so awesome. They're talking to Timmy Hansen, and did you see his World Championship trophy right behind him? I think that is what I think as good as it gets in terms of room decorations. Justin, please introduce our final guest.
Yeah, so I had the fantastic pleasure of chatting with Elliott Henderson, who is the one of the game developers on NASCAR Heat 5, the NASCAR franchise with 704 Games and Motorsport Games as well. So he is very near and dear to our heart, and I had the chance to sit down and talk with him a little bit about NASCAR Heat 5, but also about the NASCAR season and just how we feel about NASCAR in general. I'm here with game developer and genuine NASCAR nerd Elliott Henderson, who is currently working on NASCAR Heat 5. Hello, Elliott.
What's going on?
Oh, doing well, doing well. So we wanted to talk a little bit about NASCAR and NASCAR Heat 5 today. So we'll start first with NASCAR Heat, since obviously we are getting very, very close to launch. And a lot of people are going to be very interested about what's going on with NASCAR Heat 5 and all that kind of stuff. So we've got a couple of things that we want to touch on and expand today. So one of the things, and this was something that was requested a little bit, was people wanted more in-depth career stats, which is something that we have brought into Heat 5. So tell us a little bit about the differences between what we're used to and what we can expect to see in 5.
Yeah, so I mean, NASCAR Heat 4 didn't really have a lot of stats in it. It was kind of just your point standings year to year, and there was no real look at what you were doing. So Heat 5 obviously goes a lot deeper on that. You can look at individual AI stats, and you can look at your own stats on a year-to-year basis. With we've added in your average start, average finish, your points position. So basically, when you go through career, I mean, it's not going to be exciting 1 or 2 seasons in, but when you're 15, 16 seasons in, if you're going that far with it, or even 4 to 5 seasons in, you can go back and look at each year that you've run and see where your average finish was, where you were in points and stuff, and kind of get an idea of how you've been doing through your career. You can look at all the other AI as well as you're running through, so you can look at where Kevin Harvick was, year to year, and just kind of get a little bit more information than what you're used to. And a lot of the people that are going to role play their career and change seats or start their own team or stuff like that will get a little bit more out of it, and be able to showcase their own stats and their own play time a little bit more, having gone from either Joe Gibbs or whatever and running really well to starting your own team and having to work your way back up from that point. You'll be able to see those changes year to year in your stats now, for you and then for the AI as well. So it's just kind of this nice little depth more for the people that are trying to make it into a bit of a story as well, and see how they've gone throughout their career versus just playing that very season to season linear type feel that Heat 4 kind of had to it. And
does it collect all your stats from all the series? Do you see all the stats from all the series, or is it one by one?
Yes. Oh, yeah. So you'll be able to basically go in and you can get to it from the standings menu or from your own individual stats menu, the My Player area. And you can swap through each individual series. So Cup, Xfinity, Truck, and Dirt as well. And you can just get a whole list of, similar to what Racing Reference, or if you've played the Thunder games, that they provide that year to year of, seasonal stats. And I believe all the information is basically your points finish, your average start, average finish throughout the season, your starts, wins, poles, top 5s, top 10s, all the regular standard information is there. And it's I think there's also laps led as well, and it's all there year to year over each series. Yep.
Gotcha. And it is going to be a little bit tougher for some people to get into those winning positions or top 5s, top 10s, and stuff like that, because of course in the career mode specifically this year we do have the DNFs for the first time, so people can actually not finish at all in that race. So tell us a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, another well requested feature with NASCAR Heat, it was always you kind of just hit pit road and had the 30-40 seconds of repair time if the car was heavily damaged. Now we're at the point where if you hit the wall numerous times, or if you hit it once at a very high rate of speed, you could ultimately see yourself out of the race due to damage. or mechanical failures. If you over rev the engine, if you money shift, as they call it, going from fourth to first through a corner at a road course or something like that, trying to get to pit road speed or something, you could ultimately blow your engine by over revving. So there's that aspect to it now where you could have a pretty good car and just kind of ruin your race out of nowhere as it happens. Obviously tire failures aren't a thing in NASCAR Heat, but you can still damage it to the point that you will DNF.
Got it. So that's going to make things a little bit more challenging. One thing that's going to help keep things more competitive, though, actually, is the new pit stop times. If I'm not mistaken, the pit stops have been standardized a little. I guess is a good way of saying it. I mean, there's still some variety in there, right?
Yeah, so I want to go back for 1 second before I step over myself here. The tires can fail. We still have blowouts and stuff.
Okay.
But yeah, I just wanted to reiterate that's still a thing. I don't know that you would essentially damage your car enough from one of those impacts, though. Just to put that out there. As far as the pit stop stuff, yeah, a lot of that's made for online specific. But this will also help you against the AI, where I think a lot of people were seeing that the pit stop times were anywhere from 13 to like 18 seconds, or just a very vast amount of time. So online, you could end up losing 2, 3, 4 seconds on pit road, which is somewhat realistic. But because you have no control over how you enter your pit box with automatic pit stops and stuff like that, we wanted to get them a little bit closer. So I think the range is a lot closer to I think the max I've seen is about 1.2 seconds, where a minimal is going to be about a 0.2 or a 0.3 difference in tenths. So it's a lot closer on pit road and should ultimately make your online racing and your AI racing a lot closer. And you won't be losing all that time on pit road between cautions or green flag pit stops now.
And I imagine that's going to be something that's especially appealing to like leagues and stuff like that, people who are rather serious about their online racing.
Yeah, it should make your league racing just that much more competitive because obviously a lot of people want to get down and run as competitive as possible, and they start their leagues to be able to do that and not mess with just the public lobbies. So your league play should be a lot more competitive in that aspect and give you, it won't end up hurting you randomly, as I feel it kind of does with the generated pit stop times currently. It should make that a lot more competitive.
And for those that aren't interested in league racing and competing with others online, which we always do encourage, we love leagues over at NASCAR Heat. We encourage joining a league, especially because there's tons out there of all different skill levels and stuff. So we highly encourage going out and joining a league. But if you're the type of person that prefers playing solo, single player, that kind of stuff, there is some improvements as well, small improvements, tweaks, shall we say, to the AI, which will help those playing single player just to have that little bit more competitive of a time, just to go wheel to wheel with the AI a little bit more. Tell us a little bit about that too.
Yeah, we found that through career and through quick race, at like the same AI setting, 105 or 95 or whatever you play at, there's a lot of tracks that were kind of inconsistent in how the AI were. So there's certain tracks. I know for one that Richmond and Atlanta have both been modified. Richmond, I believe you couldn't really advance past 30th, it felt like, in career or even in quick race. So that's been modified so that the racing is more ideal than what it was. I'm not going to say it's it's not vastly easier, but it's certainly not harder. It's definitely easier than what it was. Atlanta was another track where I felt like when you went through career and you were in hot seats, even in like a 3-star truck team, you were fast enough to finish top 5. So that's been reworked. So, all the tracks are more consistent, and it's a better feel throughout the season versus what we had where, I feel like people may have been editing their difficulty just based on the track they were going to. We're hoping that now you will be able to basically proceed through a season without having to change your difficulty. So if you like to play on Legend, it should feel very normal playing through on a normal level versus having to change that week to week based on the track, because some of the tracks were a little bit more inconsistent with the AI settings.
Gotcha. So yeah, just some polish in that regard, which is always fantastic to see.
Yes.
Yeah. So we're all looking forward to NASCAR Heat 5, and of course that is going to be coming out with the Gold Edition on July 7th, Standard Edition on July 10th. Now let's take it back a little bit. Let's go away from the virtual world and into the real world of NASCAR. Which I'm getting back into, as you, Elliott and I, for those listeners, Elliott and I talk all the time, and I'm usually asking questions about NASCAR because, yeah, there was quite a long break between my last NASCAR race before 2020 and my newfound passion for NASCAR that I'm getting into this year. And it's been a crazy year, let's be honest, for someone to try and get back into NASCAR. It's been a bit wild. So I was going to ask you some questions because you are the big NASCAR guy. What is your favorite all-time NASCAR driver? Any driver, all-time, any era, favorite driver, go.
Can I pick two? Because like it kind of changed. I grew up a Bobby Labonte fan. Like that's who got me into NASCAR. I was born in '94, so I'm relatively young. So Bobby Labonte was kind of a big name through the late '90s and won the championship in 2000. So, my dad was an Earnhardt fan, but I specifically liked Bobby Labonte because I think we started watching when I was like 3 or 4 years old, and flipping through the channels, I just saw a green car with that orangish lightning bolt on the side, or whatever year they ran that scheme. I know it differed year to year a little bit, but I saw that car, and I think it was at an Atlanta race where he beat Earnhardt or finished second to Earnhardt. I don't know what year that was, but it was that event, and we were just kind of flipping through the channels, and I saw that car, and I was like, I like that one because it was green, and I've always grown up loving the color green, so I guess that derives from that. But yeah, so it was Bobby Labonte that really started my liking, and then it transitioned into Jamie McMurray when he retired. And I always just kind of liked McMurray because he came on like he won his first race I think in 2002 when he subbed for Sterling Marlin in his second ever start. Shades of Trevor Bayne. But he won the Coca-Cola 600, and he beat my favorite driver, Bobby Labonte, to win it. So it was a nice little passing of the torch, and he was like this new phenom that I always feel like he turned into kind of an underdog. He never really performed to that championship caliber that I think was anticipated of him after coming out on the scene so quickly. But he was always just a fantastic talent, especially when he went and ran Xfinity races for Junior Motorsports and stuff like that. So I was just always really impressed and drawn to him. And when he always won the big races too. I mean, he won the Coke 600 in his second start, and then he went and won the Daytona 500, the Indianapolis race. I mean, he won an All-Star race too. I mean, he won all those big crown jewel events. So it was just always fun to kind of watch him. And I always like rooting for underdogs too. So it's like he wasn't the championship favorite like at any point in his career, but he was definitely a contender to make the playoffs or the chase every year that he was in it.
He sounds like the F1 equivalent to him to me and maybe you can confirm this or not, but he sounds almost like Juan Pablo Montoya. Who was? Oh,
I don't know. I put Montoya on a much better pedestal there.
Because he came into F1 and he was like challenging Schumacher and all this stuff, and everyone thought like future champion, and he won races and all that kind of stuff. And then just as quickly as he arrived, he was gone, and he was into the U.S. racing.
I feel like Juan kind of never really took a full deep dive into a lot of stuff. I didn't pay a ton of attention to his career. I just know that he was a very established racer and everything he did. Like he was always fast and everything. I feel like he's one of those guys that never put enough time into one thing, and he liked to jump, because I mean he came into NASCAR, he was there for like I think it was close to 10 years. I think he started in like 2007 and left in like probably 14 or 15ish. I don't know dates off the top of my head, but then he just went over to IndyCar and he's run really well over there. I think he has a championship with Penske or something. It's like he's very good. He just never really, I don't think he had the sole focus on one thing at one time. He's just a very good all-around driver. Like he's definitely one of the best ever. But I think if he would have established himself in a single series, he probably could have won an F1 title. He probably would have won, multiple titles.
Yeah. No, I think you're right about that. And then, who is your favorite NASCAR driver at the moment? Who of the guys on the 2020 grid?
See, you got me again, because McMurray like just retired, so it's like I'm kind of in that phase where I like a lot of guys. See, I feel like a lot of people go through that phase where they have like that one person I don't like, but they don't really have anybody that they genuinely like as their favorite. And I feel like I'm in that phase because there's definitely guys out there that I'm like, if they win more races, I'm good. I don't need to watch a whole lot more. But if I'm drawn to Truex probably, which now he's getting older, so that kind of sucks. But I was raised in New Jersey, so Truex was, I think he lived like less than an hour from me. He was in Maine, New Jersey, so I'm drawn to him in that aspect. Yeah, I don't like after he retires. I really don't know who to support. I don't know.
I mean,
it's hard. It's hard.
That's where I'm at in F1. I love Sergio Perez, but when he leaves, I don't know what to do with myself. What do I do?
And then it's like, you've got these young guys, but it's like, who do you pick? Because you don't know who's going to perform and who's going to get, outed after 2 or 3 seasons. I mean, you had Daniel Suarez come in and he underperformed, so now he's lost 2 of the biggest rides. And it's like, it's hard to pick a rookie because you don't know how long they're going to be around. I mean, I'm kind of looking at Alex Bowman or someone like Tyler Reddick, but they're both on that cusp of like, they don't really have the full-time sponsorship package and stuff. So it's like, if they underperform, they may not be able to make it. And it's like, it's hard to really pick someone, but I'm hoping that with like Jimmy Johnson retiring, that Alex Bowman might be able to take over a little bit of that Ally sponsorship and something works out. But I think Bowman is a big guy to look forward to in years to come. But of course, you can't go wrong with someone like Chase Elliott or Ryan Blaney. That's already an established name based off just not only their father's name and legacy, but based off their own record and winning races and everything throughout their career already. So yeah, there's a lot of opportunity to pick someone, that's for sure. But after Truex, I think I'm leaning towards a Reddick or a Bowman if they end up staying with the team long term.
Nice. You really do like an underdog then, because I mean, a lot of people are going to say like Jimmy or Chase or the really established names, and certainly I think those are probably less popular choices. Yeah,
I like a guy that needs to prove himself a little bit. I feel like Bowman is like the ultimate guy that's done that. I mean, he went to BK for a few years, and that team just ultimately didn't have the right equipment to perform very well. And he kind of was sitting stagnant and had, I think he was just a simulator dev driver for Hendrick. And then when Junior retired, they put him in that car, and big shoes to fill as when Johnson retires, when Gordon retired, like, Hendrick just had the big name cars that you had to fill seats with. He's performed really well in that car, and he performed well when Junior had his, concussion and they put Bowman in the car, and he was just constantly a top 10 driver. So I think that there's a lot there, and I think that Hendrick overall is growing. So I think that he can turn into a champion. But yeah, there's big names in the sport right now that you got to take down. So it's like, it's hard.
And
it's hard to pick.
What about what of the current cars, of the 2020 cars, what is your favorite scheme? This is something I can answer. My favorite has got to be the Ally. I really do like Jimmy's matte black Ally. It's just so clean. I'm a big fan of it. But what would you say? You're more of a design guy, so.
Yeah, I grew up designing cars. That was kind of my main passion. And I always like stuff that's overdone, but I haven't seen anything that's been really overdone. Yeah. The JTG cars that are done are very they're probably the closest to being like just really intricate. Man, I don't know. I had thought about this earlier, and I still just couldn't think of anything. I'm really drawn to the Kenseth car, but I feel like that's because all of your screenshots have Matt Kenseth in it.
It does look super clean. It does look super clean.
I think when it comes down to it, the discount tire cars that Brad Keselowski's had, not even just the one this year, but like the previous ones, those always seem to be really, really well done. And I don't know if it's just because it's that traditional black, red, and white, and those colors just always go well together. But I just always... Too. Yeah, I like those cars. I think they look good. Yeah. I don't know. If I had to pick anything else, I don't know. The chase car, I wasn't a fan of, and then they like altered it a little bit this year. Yeah, and then they like changed it a little bit this year, and I like it a lot more. It's that blue TV panel. I like those solid blue TV panel, and Yeah, it looks. I don't remember exactly what else they did with it. I think they made the front end a little bit wider with how the yellow and the blue comes down and goes onto the nose of the car. But that car just looks so sharp, and he's put it in so many good spots this year that yeah.
It's hard to ignore.
And then the blue number just looks really good. I think years past they've usually just gone with the white on blue. I think the primarily white door with the primarily blue hood just really accents well. It plays itself really well. So I think that's probably one of the better looking schemes. And honestly, I think if they don't change it much, it'll be, I'm not going to go with the word iconic, but it'll be one of the more recognizable schemes going forward, especially with how well it's running. So I think that's a good one.
It's well designed. It works well with the Napa logo too. You know,
yeah.
When a scheme works well with the sponsorship, that's what really.
So that's the other side of me that I don't feel like a lot of designers pull from is if you look at it, it's literally the Napa logo put on the car, but it's just inverted colors. And I've always loved when people can do that and pull it off incredibly well. And I think that's why I'm drawn to that one is, I mean, the hood is literally just, if you took the Napa, I don't know, is it a pentagon or whatever shape that is, and you just ultimately stretched it across the hood, that's what it's doing. It's a little bit different, obviously, but I think when you can pull an element like that and just apply it to the car, I just think it works. Because the best looking cars to me are the ones that when you take all the decals off and you just look at the base and you know what sponsor it is, those are the best designed cars. The ones that literally don't need the sponsorship decals on it. And I feel like you can look at that and just tell, with the right colors and everything, yeah, that's a Napa car,
Exactly. And really quickly, what would you say is your favorite NASCAR scheme of all time? Is it the Bobby Labonte one, the green one?
No. All right, I'm biased here. So Kyle Larson ran a Belkin scheme in 2016 at Bristol. I had designed that, so I'm very specifically biased to that one. But if I had to pick a scheme that I didn't personally design, it's either between the old Harvick Reese's car that he used to drive, or the Hershey's car. There was I think he ran it at Daytona. It was a silver and brown for the Hershey's color car, and the silver was almost this chrome type deal.
Ooh.
And it just
I think I know the one you're talking about, actually.
The metallic of it just looked so good. It looked
I love chrome accenting. It's
Yes. So there's that one, and then McMurray also drove, I think it was 03. He had the it was when Haviland used the blue and the yellow and stuff, and it was just this spiky type deal with the silver. Younger me was definitely all over that scheme. That scheme was really cool back in the day. Now that I look at it, I'm like, yeah, it's a pretty normal scheme at this point. Yeah. But back in the day, it's that was really cool in the early 2000s. So definitely, I don't know, maybe I'm just drawn to silver more than I am to green at this point. But those two schemes probably highlight very well for me. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, that is going to do it for our chat. Thank you for chatting with me, Elliott. I'm sure we'll have you back on again in the future.
Hopefully, yeah, we'll see.
Thank you so much.
Yep, talk to you later.
So that was Elliott Henderson just chatting to us a little bit. He's not just a developer, by the way. He also does design. He designs cars as well, which is absolutely incredible. I was going to ask you, because you're obviously getting a little bit more exposed to NASCAR now.
Yes.
Have you had a look at the 2020 grid? Is there a particular car that jumps out at you?
I can go through them like for a guy who's new to NASCAR, you instantly go, oh, M&M car, and everyone likes the Kyle Busch car. But I've been playing a lot of NASCAR Heat 4, doing a lot of online racing, getting beaten by a load of American people, which I hate. Chasing Elliott's ride, I think I love her. It's such a classic looking livery. It's got those kind of almost racing stripes down the side. I'm just looking at it now. That is, perfect livery for me. What about you?
First of all, I got to agree with you on Chase, because what Elliott was saying, it ties in with the sponsorship.
Yeah.
And that's how you gotta make it look good. You gotta tie it in with the sponsorship. So Yeah, I've got a number of favorites, but I think that for this year, I do really like that Ally, the Jimmy Johnson Ally car, the matte black with the purple in it and everything like that. It's so recognizable. Yeah. You're not going to miss it. Same with that Napa car too, though. You know, you see that thing on track, you know exactly who's behind the wheel. You know who you're looking at. Unmistakable. And, you know, I think a lot of people, that's really the sign of a fantastic paint scheme or livery. You know, I'm used to saying both at this point. Paint scheme, livery. It's all the same to me.
I know you've been an F1 fan for too long. I think getting into the same paint schemes is a long way gone. Never happened to me. Just to quickly touch on NASCAR as well. Of course, it's been a crazy year for NASCAR in terms of all types of incidents going on recently, which we won't get onto in here. But more importantly, the COVID situation has seen NASCAR be one of almost the first racing championship around the world to race behind closed doors with social distancing rules in place. How has that been for you watching it, and what's the reception been like stateside for that?
It is a bit weird, you know. It's weird watching the cars go around, especially because NASCAR is done, essentially in a stadium sort of setting. You know what I mean? So I think the best comparison. I don't know if you're a wrestling fan. I don't really watch wrestling these days, but you know, I follow a lot of people on Twitter who are into it. Okay, yeah. So you've seen the fight, the matches that they're doing with nobody in the, and it's kind of, you know, it's just a little weird. It's still very entertaining. It's still awesome to watch. You know, you're still like, this is great. You know, I'm glad this is here. But it is a little bit weird without the fans. I'm not going to lie. It's a little bit bizarre. But, you know, we'll take what we can get right now, which is, you know, part of why esports has gotten so big over the past few months, because people are like, you know, I just want to see cars going around a circuit. I don't care if it's pixels or atoms at this point. I'm not picky. I just want to see some racing. And, you know, I have to say they've done a fantastic job, actually. It's been really, really good to have some cars on track, to be able to hear the roar of the engines and stuff like that. I'm glad they're going about it safely. It is, you know, there's some of those memes now where, because the drivers are getting interviewed by microphones that come up on those arms out of nowhere. So you're like, oh, we're speaking here with Denny Hamlin. How are you feeling, Denny? And then just whoop, and then the microphone just pops up right in front of his face, which is a little hilarious to me. But you know, they've been, Denny Hamlin as well. He's got the mask of his smiling face on. You know, they've been making the best of the bad situation, which is, I think, essentially what everybody's been trying to do with the coronavirus situation, the global pandemic that everybody has been having to deal with. You know, making the best of the bad situation is exactly what it's all about. And I think NASCAR should really be applauded, not just for the way that they've handled coronavirus, but as you mentioned, the other topics that have been going around a lot recently. I think NASCAR has, in 2020, been doing a fantastic job. I am actually so happy that I'm involved in NASCAR in 2020. I don't think I could have picked a better year, because it's fantastic. You know, it's taken a bit of a turn, maybe from what people think of the stereotype of NASCAR and stuff like that. But you know, they're all about inclusiveness, bringing people in, getting the family watching the races, and I think it's been great. I
couldn't agree more, mate. For me, I'm just happy to see racing come back. I think it's been. I think I'm a football fan, I'm a wrestling fan, I'm a motorsport fan. Firstly, I'm a motorsport fan, and for me, it's just been all my three favorite things, which I can sit down and watch for hours, all taken away. But to see the efforts that all these kind of huge championships around the world. Well, look, we know it's for commercial reasons. These guys are racing because they've got to keep sponsors happy. They've got to keep broadcasters happy, but
pay the bills.
Exactly. But the thing for me, it's been. They've not been shying away on the actual entertainment factor on it as well. They're allowing everything to be a bit tongue-in-cheek. And I just saw this weekend we had Rally Sweden put on a stay-at-home rally. So it was promoting the stay-at-home message whilst putting on some awesome rallying for loads of people around the world. It was the first rallying event, my first off-road event I've kind of settled into in 2020 or more recently. And yeah, so good to see sport coming back. People, we've been talking for far too long this episode. 90 minutes. But yeah, thank you to Jimmy Broadbent, Timmy Hansen, and Elliott from the NASCAR Heat team for joining us. And me and Justin will be back again. I think, when we'll be back? A week, 2 weeks?
Something like that. ASAP. ASAP.
Thank you for listening. Hashtag Motorsport Games Podcast. Follow us on social media at Motorsport Games or at NASCAR Heat for Justin. And yeah, we'll see you soon.